I spent the whole last year doing then pretty much was I was recording videos at home because we have student iPads, but I didn't have a teacher iPad at that time with the tech on it that I could record videos. So every night after I put my kids to bed, I was recording a video or two or what I needed to get done for the week. And then I uploaded them into a Google folder for my parents. And the first unit, what I did was I said, the kids watched the video with me in class. And every day I very, very deliberately went through, this is where you go, this is the folder it's in, this is the lesson. We watched it together, and then they would place themselves in one of three groups. They would place them, and I'm off on my names a little bit, on I got it, I don't need any help, I need a little help, or I need a lot of help. And those kids who were in the I Got It group then would look on a kind of our playlist of activities for the day, and they would get through the have-tos, and then they could choose what their activities were after that. And sometimes it was manipulative everyday math games, or sometimes it was going on the everyday math site and playing games that way. The kids who needed a little bit of help would come to my table with me with the kids who said they needed a lot of help. And as soon as they felt like they had a handle on what they were doing, they would go back to their seat or wherever their learning space was for that day. And they would begin working through the playlist, knowing that anybody can come up at any time and just join in or quick ask a question and do things like that. And then the I Got It group, or I Need a Lot of Help group, really was with me the whole time, working through pretty much their playlist. We were just working through it together. I would model, I would have them try one, and we would do a combination of that. But while they were watching the videos with me in class for that first unit, I made a video for parents, and I said, this is what flipped learning is, this is what it looks like. Take a few minutes, watch this video. And then it was really just a lot of conversations back and forth with parents. Do you have internet access at home? On what kind of device will your student be watching this? Do you think you can get this in? And I really did kind of preface it with, everyday math homework takes about a half hour, or you can watch a 10-minute video. And most parents definitely jumped on board the 10-minute video piece. And I really had all but 3 kids who on a regular basis were able to watch the video at home. And those kids would just watch it first thing in the morning while they were having their breakfast in class. And then they would everybody did, it was just usually a 1 or 2 question response, kind of as an accountability piece, so that I knew they had watched the video at home. And after that first unit, I sent all parents the link, and I said, keep this link, bookmark it, whatever, and go to this folder. And then the homework every day was I would tell the students in their assignment notebook planner what video they should be watching that night. And after probably the first unit, there was a few more hiccups getting it set up, making sure parents could see it. In most part, it really did work really well. And I had parents later on in the year, one parent subs in our building, she's like, we were watching you on the way to a gymnastics tournament. And I was like, oh, great. So you all heard me. Or I had a grandparent who was not able to get the device set up, so she brought it in with her student one day, and I worked quick to get our tech guys here, and they were able to get it bookmarked and set up so that he was able to do this at home. So it took a lot of people, but once it was set up, it was pretty seamless. The first 10 minutes or so was kind of the kids, and that was the start of our day also. So they came in, they were doing their assignment notebook. When they came up to have that initialed, so I know they had that filled out, they also brought me their math journal that they took home at night, which was just a notebook, but they would date that and they would have the lesson so they could see what they did at home. So I marked that off, and then they placed themselves. And then they really jumped right into that playlist. And kind of after announcements, I would review what the new assignments were for the day. And then they would jump into, if they were with me, they came up to the table at that time. If they were working at their seats, they went about that. And then kind of really that small group time, the group that said, I don't get it, they were with me that whole time. And I would model something, and then we'd try one together. And, it was that gradual release that as the lesson went on that day, they were doing more and more on their own. And when they had a moment that they were working, I was getting up and I was checking on the kids especially the kids who said I need a little help, following up with them, and then also checking in on the kids who said they got it and making sure that they weren't just doing that because they didn't want to admit that they needed help, which I ran into occasionally. Playlist, primarily, it was just a fun name for a kind of to-do list of sorts. one thing that was always on the playlist was what would have been the homework. Everyday Math comes with a homework workbook for every student, but because we were flipping, they didn't need to do that at home. So that was usually the piece I had them start with, knowing that homework in general with Everyday Math usually is a little bit easier because they account for the students to be doing it independently. So that was a good thing for them to start with. And then if there were any activity pages in their student math journals, I had them do, depending on what it was. Sometimes they did the whole page, sometimes they did a couple, and then the math boxes that accompany that. And I kind of had a code for those with the kids so that they weren't always come up and asking questions, but they were using each other as resources. If it was an I next to that number and I would put it up on the board, I wanted them to do that one independently. A P meant they could do it with a partner. And then they were always given the option, they could skip one math box or one question on it. And then I would list the games that kind of went along with the lesson, whether that was a manipulative game or on Everyday Math. Usually the game was in both places, so they could kind of choose. And the nice thing with having them log on is I could see their progress. I could see if they were playing the game right. Just a little bit more of that accountability piece that I felt like I needed with fourth graders. And sometimes it was helping another student, just different kinds of things like that. But it was really just a fun name kind of for a to-do list, things I wanted them to know so that they could demonstrate their learning. And there was, we usually did it about once a week, an assessment packet that covered any of the lessons for this week that were like a couple questions from each lesson so that I could see how they were progressing with those skills. And I used that kind of in conjunction with the math workbook pages and just my observations in class to really see if I thought they were firm on those skills. It was a separate time, and in large part, I don't know how the elementaries in Johnston are doing it. We were using ours here at Lawson primarily for math, I said math, primarily for reading. But I did have some kids who I needed to work on things in math. So if you were not in a reading intervention group with me, sometimes I would say, hey, go on and play this game today, or rewatch this video, or finish up this math and let me see what you were doing. The hard part, and it's a battle you play all the time, is those kids who need to be in a math intervention and a reading intervention. And then you just have to decide where you're going to get the most bang for your buck and which piece is going to help them more. Every day but Wednesdays for 30 minutes. Okay. And we could divide that time as a team. And we sometimes took the kids, depending on where we were at in everything with fourth grade, sometimes we took 2 groups for 15 minutes. Sometimes they went to a different classroom. Sometimes I had that whole group for 30. So it really was just whatever we needed that time to be. If I had kids that I needed to finish up or clarify, I could take 5 minutes here or there to touch base with them and clarify their thinking a little bit.